Dear Sandra, thank you very much for having this opportunity to sit here around this table today and to talk about what we have in common. That's for sure that Baltic states have a common denominator, and when we speak with our colleagues from Western Europe, they have different historical experience. So today, this week, when we commemorate this mass deportation, 65th anniversary of mass deportations to Siberia and uprisal in Norilsk Gulag in Siberia, and the 60th anniversary, how do you find yourself with having big experience as diplomat, as ambassador, as a politician, about knowledge in Europe in general? You know, Eastern Europeans, Western Europeans, it's not nice maybe to make the division or, to distinguish it, but still, what is your impression throughout your whole career?
I would wish if there would not be this division between those countries who were captive behind the Iron Curtain, but the division still exists, and people like you and me and many who came from that former territory dominated by Soviet Union, we have done a lot to raise awareness, to provide information about what happened behind the Iron Curtain and what the communist repressions really were alike. The problem is that for majority of Europeans, it's a long past, which means that they can't somehow associate themselves with those events which happened at the end of the Second World War, because during all these years they constructed entirely new world, which is European Union. We joined it, jumping in the last car of the train which left station 50 years before. But still, I never give up, even if I feel like a small ant trying to bring, to correct, to explain. Even my book, with Dance Shoes and Siberian Snows, I wrote of frustration. I was ambassador to France before I was ambassador to UN, and for me it was absolutely shocking, the lack of any knowledge, not even about history, but even of existence of countries of Baltic states like Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. And finally I decided that at least I have to write a book trying to explain what really happened to us, all many of us.
Could you name, if possible, if I may ask, just I'm improvising, was there some circumstances or evaluation from the people who do not know properly our history that you felt offended, or you felt
permanently really permanently? But I don't care about it. I have very strong goal to do as much as possible, and I, being a former diplomat, I never get I'm never losing control. I never show that I'm offended by this, first of all, lack of knowledge, and secondly, also, of all the prejudices which exist. In 2004, I was nominated as a commissioner, and because just my book came out in French and German, my book about Siberia, I was invited to inaugurate Leipzig book show, and I said that Nazism and communism, they both are criminal regimes, and the perpetrators should be brought to justice, etc., etc. What we are, we take it as absolutely self-evident. And you know what happened? All around German newspapers, and then later around other European newspapers, there was an outcry. How dare she to compare communist gulag with Nazi concentration camps. I was not saying that they are identical. I was saying that the crimes committed are the crimes and the perpetrators have to be brought to justice. But happily for me, there were 8 new member states in the European Union who have experienced what communism really means. They experienced what Anna Applebaum calls the crashing of Eastern Europe, and they raised their voice. And probably that was one of the first instances when our Western partners began really to understand that after that enlargement, it will be very difficult for them to insist on their concept of the modern European history. The perception of Iron Curtain, as it was in the West, and as we lived through that, is completely different. And since then, the truth, we are telling all the time the truth. There are numerous research done in our countries. What I regret that we work like in a vertical way, all Lithuanians about Lithuania, Latvians about Latvia, Czechs about Czechs. What we lack until recently, a horizontal network, because we have not only to learn what was particular in our countries, how its regime worked in our countries, but we also have to specify what was common. And that's why I was very happy this year, in 2013, came out the book of Anne Applebaum, Crushing of Eastern Europe. That is first attempt to show what was common in the methods. So step by step there are more and more about Iron Curtain, but still if you will walk in a bookshop in any Western countries, London, Paris, Germany, you will see the difference in amount, what has been accumulated during all these years since researchers and politicians and writers are dealing with Nazi heritage. And with that rather small shelf dedicated to Stalinism, totalitarian communism, Bolshevism, we still have so many things to do.
Well, I think that we would both agree that it depends a lot on individuals and what every person does for historical remembrance and things like that. And for example, the book by Rūta Šepetys, which opens very clearly the page that was maybe hidden in a way, and the work in the Parliament and History's Reconciliation group that you're leading it, and there are many members, and I'm happy to work together in this group to give knowledge for our colleagues here. But do you think that how shall I say, how long we will continue working like individuals? Okay, maybe we will find on the non-governmental level people who are thinking to the same direction, but would the legislation, certain legislation, would help? I mean, on the European Union level, by evaluating totalitarian crimes and all sorts of totalitarian crimes, and to boost these ideas and to have them implemented.
There are several levels we have to achieve. The first one is information, distribution, dispersion of the information. We have not yet achieved it. Of course, if there would be more political will to do that, that would be easier. For instance, last 2012, the grants for research projects, for civil consciousness projects, among 12 grants by the Commission under citizenship program, not a single one was accorded to institution or NGO from Eastern Europe or Baltic states.
Particularly for research.
Or civil consciousness. That's very linked, education and so on. Which also shows that those experts who evaluate, they live in a different universe. They don't understand that we need also to harmonize these two sides of Europe. Then the next step is the legislation. In 2007, when there was the German presidency and they were determined to adopt the framework law on racism and xenophobia. And Baltic states and some other Eastern European states, our Home and Justice ministers, they raised also the demand to include in these framework law reference to Stalinist crimes. We were treated anti-Europeans on that. But never mind, we achieved that Commission had to provide a report. What is the state of legislation in different EU member states regarding the commemoration, memory, also related to criminal law and so on. That report showed that there is no common basis for such a European framework. Then we have to change the definition of genocide, which was defined by UN, with Stalinist Soviet Union being active in the discussion, and they prevented that the social class and other references are included. And our deportations and crimes committed against our population is mostly based on social status. But still, there are law experts insisting that there is a window of opportunity and that already existing legislation allows to bring to justice the communist perpetrators. The problem is that there is a lack of political will, because both right, European right and European left, they have to look in their past and they have to reshape their attitude towards for European law, right, how they all these years they worked together and that was a big source of income for Western business, and left, they still insist that it was freedom, liberty and brotherhood.
And maybe lastly and shortly, we talk a lot about need, to introduce our history to Europe. But what about ourselves? I mean, Latvia, Lithuania. I'm pretty sure that in Latvia as well as in Lithuania, we can hear, some new perceptions of or evaluation of history. So
I'm afraid that in Lithuania, situation is much better. Because at least on the legislative level, you can bring to criminal charges against the perpetrators, and not only perpetrators but also of disinformation, banalization and so on. In Latvia, the situation is particularly difficult because we have divided perception of our recent history. The recent, I mean everything what happened since 1940 when Baltic states were occupied. We have quite an important Russian-speaking part of population, which is very open to all these Отечественники programs coming from Russia, and that is a very serious problem because Russia never recognized its responsibility in all that. And that is the difference between Nazi Germany, because Victoria's allies, they pushed them to admit. And look today at the Germany, one of the most democratic and tolerant countries in Europe. and Germany is a European superpower. For Russia, this is a very core issue of their identity, because during the entire 20th century, that is the only war which gives pride, national pride to Russians, and they associate somehow their identity with that. And they are not prepared to recognize that war is war and victory is victory, but what happened with the Eastern Europe and Baltic states after that is their responsibility, and they never recognized anything. Something very close they came in Poland, then they excused for the cutting. But that is almost the only excuse I ever heard from Russian authorities.
Well, yes, that it gives us, more motivation, maybe, I don't know how to formulate it, to continue our work and really not to never give up, and not to confront with people, but to confront with this injustice, which is basically most probably based at the political level. So thank you very much, and hopefully those friends that we found here that think in the same directions, that we will continue this work for getting to know each other better.
Yeah, I wish we would have more friends on this issue.
Thank you.